What is up, guys? It's Jimbo here, and welcome back to another video. Respawn Entertainment seem to have found the golden formula when it comes to Star Wars games, and not long ago we had this fiasco. Building off the back of Fallen Order and the success that it had, the foundation that it's laid, Jedi Survivor tasks us on going on another adventure in the Star Wars universe, and adventuring we did. Jedi Survivor can only be summed up in two words for me, and that is almost perfect.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Fallen Order set the foundation for the Jedi Survivor game to come out, and in Jedi Survivor, Respawn are swinging for the fences, and swing they damn well did. The combination of Metroidvania exploration that always opens up as you play the game, Souls-like combat that has just enough depth and complexity that leads into the Jedi power fantasy is the biggest draw for this series of games. Oh, and there's also that little known property that it's attached to. Jedi Survivor takes place 5 years after Fallen Order. You keep all of your powers from the first game, but we also get to see a more old and seasoned Cal Kestis.
Poncho.
To give you a brief synopsis of the story with minor spoilers, we find a key to a High Republic vault/lock, and with that key, we open up a Bacta tank, which brings us to
Poncho.
this guy, Dagan Gara. He's a High Republic Jedi. He wants to find his way through the distant unknown planet that he was trying to find before he was put in this Bacta tank, and we find out more as we go along. That's all I will say. There are some twists and turns in the game which surprise me, but purposely I've left out footage from the last 2 acts of the game regarding cutscenes. All I can say is that it is a progression from Fallen Order and goes on its own path away from the Skywalker era and explores something new, which is what Disney has been pushing, and especially Lucasfilm, with the High Republic era of Star Wars. As for aspects of the story, we also get to have Merrin come back. Oh, Merrin. But there are a variety of different planets that we go to, but the main hub planet is Kobo. You'll meet some interesting characters there, and the best thing about all of the characters in the game is Turgle.
Hey!
The one thing that I really do love about the game is that they've taken the time to flesh out even just NPCs. One of my favorite lines of dialogue in the game comes from the battle droids from the Separatist era, the B-100 battle droids. And then even some of the stormtroopers have like amazing dialogue that you wouldn't get if you just run in and slice them all up. But there is a really cool one where he basically talks about being on holiday because of the planet that you're on. And then, yeah, you just basically slice him up.
Nobody's getting past me, not without a blaster hole in him. I wonder if I'll get promoted for doing such a good job. Then I'll get the other droids to guard the cliff. Oh, but then I won't see the scenery. Now that's a dilemma.
It's these little details and this little seasoning that they put on. It gives it something extra, and that's what I appreciate, especially in these games. But I don't want to talk too much about the story because it's all subjective. It's down to what you enjoy as a story. For me, I have some gripes towards it, which I'll talk about in my later part of the video. But I want to talk about the most key aspect that I can't stop thinking about, and I really enjoyed in Jedi Survivor. That is
Poncho.
Lightsaber combat. The best way to describe the lightsaber combat in the game is it's very just Dark Souls light. It gets the Souls-like tag on Steam, and I think it gets it on Xbox and PlayStation, I'm not sure. But it has all of the elements that you will like from a Souls-like. You've got parrying, you've got dodging, you've got weighty attacks as well. But the thing is, it's not just that. There is options. Lightsaber combat is split into 3 core elements: blocking and parrying, force powers, and your attacks. And at any given point during combat, you will utilize one of these 3 core elements, whether or not you're on the defensive or you're on the offensive. You may use force attacks to be able to clear areas. You may parry certain enemies to get your force back. And there's a nice little element to it. Instead of you just running in and, lightsaber swing, go brrr, it's not like that. All you do is you are playing into these 3 systems, and it feels so satisfying when you nail a specific aspect of them and you upgrade yourself throughout the game. The best part about it is in the previous game, there was two stances. There was the single-bladed, and then there was the double-bladed, and there was a couple of attacks that you could do which split the lightsaber in two. This time, we have 5 stances. First one is the single-bladed lightsaber. It's the most balanced. You use it throughout the entirety of the game. It's the old reliable. It's Mr. Consistent. It's the classic that we love to see, and it plays into the fantasy of any of the characters that you've seen in the Star Wars universe. Qui-Gon, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, insert named character here. The next stance is one that we've seen before, which is the Darth Maul fantasy, the double-bladed lightsaber. It's quick, it's very mobile, and it is very good against multiple enemies. And the key aspect that I will say about it is that it plays very much like a staff. That's how you would play it in the game. You use it, you're moving around quite a lot when you're using the double-bladed, and I like the fact that it plays into it, and especially when you do one of the helicopter attacks where it spins around and comes back to you. It's pretty crazy and a lot of fun as well. Third stance is the Ahsoka fantasy with the dual-bladed lightsaber. You basically have 2 lightsabers here, and what you sacrifice in defense, you gain in offense. It's going to be very good for moving around the arena. You're very fast. You can do a bunch of damage very quickly, but if you get caught out, you also are going to be in trouble as well. The coolest part about it is, though, that you can hold the Y button or the triangle button, whatever you're playing it on, essentially to do a force attack, and you go into full meditation mode, and essentially, as soon as an enemy attacks you, you instantly parry it, and it's damn sweet to nail a combo after you have used this stance. The 4th stance in the game is the crossguard. This is going to be the second new stance in the game, and this plays so much into the Kylo Ren, the Force Awakens trilogy era of using it, and it feels like a knight when you are playing it. It's very weighty. It's got a lot of heavy attacks. It's a lot slower as well. You have better defense, so it's heavy hitting, but also very slow, so you have to pick and choose what you decide to do with it. And the added effect of this stance is it has the ability to cut through block or do increased damage to enemies block at the time as well, so it means that you can get rid of some of those heavier enemies at the cost of slower attacks. I really enjoy this stance, and especially used it if I don't want to use the single-bladed stance as much, and I use this as a substitute. The last stance is a little bit unorthodox. It's a blaster stance. Yes, Jedi's are so uncivilized using a blaster, but the thing is, it plays into it with the animations. When you do like a fencing-style stabs to get bullets back in the blaster to fill up its energy, you can use the energy from it to be able to hit certain enemies at range, so you have a little bit more range with it. You don't have as much defensive capabilities, but you are able to use it, and especially you flick the gun into its hilt and you can smack people over the face in the combo with the lightsaber. So I like this added effort to make it feel like a viable option rather than just being like, oh, bang, I'm going to just pull it out and shoot it from range. And also there's a cool move that you can do. If you hold down the Y button, you can do like a big AoE effect damage attack with like a bigger blast, which is pretty cool. I just love the feel of it. The feeling is such a hard thing to describe, and I appreciate that I have control of my character so fluidly. Being able to parry and deflect blaster shots back just has this certain charm to it that doesn't get old. Whether it's, fast or slow, oftentimes I would walk towards a group of stormtroopers and, play into that, Star Wars Jedi power fantasy, or I just run up to them full power. It plays into this power fantasy, and I love it so much. Lightsaber combat is just one pillar of the combat system, but you add in force powers as well. You can not only enhance your options to be able to deal with every single encounter, but you can make enemies, attack each other with confusion. It's a really fun aspect of the game. There's also slamming and lifting enemies in the air, pushing and pulling, and even slowing down time in the form of an ultimate ability that just adds an added effect to combat. The great thing about force powers is that they are simple to use, but they add a level of depth to each fight. I would often use pull to quickly get ranged enemies within slicing distance and then push the rest of them off ledges. It really comes down to how creative the player can be. A note when it comes to variety of enemies, which I always like in games, is there's a whole host of different enemies to go up against. There's the droids that you'll fight, the BD-1s, or not the BD-1s, the B-100s, the droidicas, the super battle droids. There's also a bunch of raiders that have long staffs that will provide you with problems. There's also the array of stormtroopers, and then there's a big like mecha droid that you'll end up fighting, which also has 2 different attack patterns depending on if you've taken off a piece of its armor or you've taken off its arm and such. It will just straight up try and kick you, but it doesn't pale to anything when it comes to public enemy number 1. These damn blue chickens caused me so many deaths throughout my run of the game that they just have to be public enemy number 1. If you find them, just murder them all. I don't care what you do. Just finish them. Just get them off the game. Just destroy them. They will make your life a living hell. If you've played the previous game, you will know that it has Metroidvania elements to it. Essentially, you'll get upgrades throughout the game that are permanent on your character, but you can go back and explore other areas of other worlds. And I want to talk about the world and level design in this section because I think it's very, very important, and I think it's one of the great aspects of the game. When you get those upgrades, you can revisit areas that are obviously previously inaccessible, but they have these, small puzzle designed elements which make it just feel so contained and makes it feel like there's a lot of time and effort put into it instead of just jumping on some different boxes. The way that the world and level is designed, giving you shortcuts to previous areas, which plays into that, Dark Souls-like-esque thing, especially after complicated climbing sections, just makes things less tedious. And I prefer that, especially in games like this. And it makes exploring something that is optional, but you want to go back and do it because there's a lot of cosmetic items in the game that you can get from it, skill points and such. But it just makes it like you want to go and do it because the game's made it easier for you. There is one specific instance in the game, I think there's a couple of times as well, but it gives me this like vibe of Uncharted. And the one section that I'm talking about, you'll know about it, is it could give, 100% vibes of Uncharted Drake's Fortune or Uncharted 2, where you are just along for the roller coaster, you're interacting with this cutscene and what is going on. And I absolutely loved it. So make sure you pay attention to that. And it involves, Merrin. All of this is an upgrade to Fallen Order. It just feels natural. But the thing that I think is one of the best aspects is that Kobo is the main planet that you have. The best way I can describe the planet is a hub planet for everything that you do in the game. When you go off to do something else, another area will open up because of the new aspects that you've been able to get, the new upgrades and such. And the other planets, they're a lot tighter. They don't feel as open, but they feel very much like a dungeon. And then you go back to these big open spaces of Kobo, and that's where you're able to take advantage of. And the reason why I talk about Kobo so much and these other explorations, because you get cosmetic items for Cal and BD, but also there's boss fights, legendary enemies, XP and skill points you can get, force meter upgrades, so you can then add an extra 20 hours to your playthrough, and everything just feels very purposeful, which is why I go and do all of the content. Why it's taken me a long time to start making this video, because you can go and do all of this, then go and do New Game Plus, and get yourself another 50 hours worth of gameplay as well, if you really wanted to. You may be thinking, though, at this point in the video, Jimbo, you haven't really answered the question, why is this game almost perfect and not perfect? And I will give you the easiest answer in the world. Performance issues. Yes, by the time this video comes out, there's probably been some patches that have allowed for the performance issues to be alleviated a little bit. But how many times have we seen AAA games come out on launch with awful performance issues? Here's the thing though, I know when it happens. It's mainly going to happen when you go from tighter areas in the game, which allows for the frame rate to go up, to the big open sections in the game. Most often it happens on Kobo, at least when I was playing on console. It's not a massive drop in frames, but it wouldn't be fair to give this game a perfect score knowing that many people didn't get to experience the game the same way I did. If I had to really pick some things apart with this game, and if we're not talking about performance, I would say without spoiling the story, it ends on a note which leaves a lot of uncertainty, but the direction it takes feels kind of weird. There's a lot of setup for one character. It didn't really pay off as the way, because it kind of like ended too quickly. And then there was another character involved, and that kind of had the same experience as well. It didn't feel like a definitive end experience like we had in Fallen Order. And it feels very much like there's going to be a third game in this trilogy. Besides the issues, though, that I have with the story, which is obviously down to personal preference, I can't, in good graces and good faith, say, yes, this is 100% 10 out of 10, if I went and just took into account the performance issues that people have had from launch. Besides the performance issues and the issues that I had with little aspects of the story, that is the reason why I can't say it's perfect, because it has this shine taken off of it. It has this marker to its name that it was bad at launch type of deal. But I want to talk about why I do think it's perfect now, but also I don't want to leave behind that overall statement that it could have been even greater. Imagine how many people wouldn't have been annoyed with a $70 purchase if the game's performance issues had been fine. Jedi Survivor can quite easily challenge for the title of best Star Wars games of all time. In recent memory, it is 100% the best I've seen, especially from EA of all places, who just a few years ago said that single-player games weren't the focus. How money and fan sentiment talks. For me, it's the perfect sequel to Fallen Order. It takes the foundation that it laid and takes it up a notch. It also adds another layer of good stuff on top of it that can be used going into the next game. Where we go from here when it comes to what Respawn are doing with the franchise, if we have another 2 games or another game, then I'm definitely going to be there, especially as a Star Wars fan. I 100% recommend getting into this if you're a Star Wars fan, and if you like Souls-like and you want to try something that isn't as difficult as the Souls games, and you want like an introductory way to get involved with this. But as we've said, the performance issues are the thing that let this down ultimately and couldn't be a 10 out of 10. Don't get it twisted though. I would say 100% I'm gonna recommend this game regardless of how I feel about certain aspects, because I feel like in a couple of weeks time or when it goes on sale, the performance issues will be patched, and I think this game is going to be one that people remember. If we actually cast our minds back to Fallen Order, they didn't have a photo mode, it didn't have New Game Plus, and it didn't receive, glaringly good scores. I think it had like a lot of 7s and 8s. I don't even know what they were going back then. But this game, 100% I recommend going and picking it up, and that's why I wanted to spend a lot of time making this video. But if you've played the game, let me know. Tell me in the comment section down below, and hopefully you've enjoyed this new video style. This is how I want to make some more videos in future on a variety of different games. Get me face on the camera and talk to you about all those stuff. If you've enjoyed this video, leave a like on it, subscribe if you're new, and turn on the notification bell to be notified when I bring out more content. And as always, this has been Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!